We're just over a week away from the Super Bowl. Falcons fans know Kyle Shanahan well. He was the signal caller back in 2016 when the offense was operating like a well-oiled machine. He's also the guy a lot of Falcons fans blame for the Super Bowl collapse.
28-3 is a score that's burned into Atlanta sports fans' memories forever. But how much does it still haunt Kyle Shanahan?
Not much at all anymore, to tell you the truth. The days after were real tough. Losing the Super Bowl is extremely tough for everybody, especially when you lose when you have a 28-3 lead going into the fourth.
Shanahan left the Falcons after the Super Bowl and took over as head coach for the San Francisco 49ers. In his third year as head coach, Shanahan's headed back to the Super Bowl with a chance to redeem himself, even though he doesn't think that Falcons Super Bowl collapse is on him.
The way it came down on me personally, I didn't react to that, I think, the way people would expect, because, there's definitely parts in that Super Bowl that I would love to have back and stuff I was very hard on myself, but, the whole narrative of if I just would have ran it, we would have won. I know that wasn't the case. It's nice to be able to move on and move out here and just keep working, and I'm glad to get the chance to go back.
Shanahan's moved on. Jeff, do you think Atlanta's moved on?
Baloney to Shanahan. I don't believe him.
All right, well, that's your look at sports. We'll be right back.